So, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Matthew Welch. How are you, Matthew? You well?
I'm doing quite well. It's a sunny morning here in California. Yourself?
Excellent. Well, I am in a freezing cold Northern Ireland right now. Yeah. And it's lashing with rain outside. It's lovely.
I miss that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we have you on the show this week is because you've recently put together quite an interesting YouTube channel and a bit of an interesting project that you have ahead of you. But first of all, I want to talk about, yourself personally and, well, first of all, your background in bagpiping. Do you want to tell us how you got your start and how you ended up to where you are now?
Sure. Yeah, I started playing music. My first instrument was accordion, actually.
Right.
So I was interested in world music and, not your usual instrument, but I grew up at that time when I started playing music. I was living in the panhandle of Florida. So there's not a lot of bagpiping, but there was a grade 5 band called the McGuire's Irish Pub Pipe Band. And I got started with the Scottish instructor, once a week, only 15-minute lessons, but they were free. And so I went with it and did summer schools and just really, I would actually say that partly why I do what I do now was that I was isolated and studied the books, studied the notes, the music, the written books, and tried to come up with some of my own music and own ways of theorizing it. And eventually went through, did do the grade 1 pipe band circuit with Simon Fraser University Pipe Band in the late 90s and the early aughts, kind of cutting the teeth in traditional music and pipe band idiom, and a couple of World Pipe Band Championships didn't hurt, and
Nope.
that was fun. But I was also studying music composition at Simon Fraser University and doing weird stuff with pianos and whatnot. And so after I graduated, since I'm American, I wasn't able to stay in Canada for that long because my sort of student visa was done.
Yeah.
I just went kind of to the East Coast and kind of went headlong into the experimental music scene, both in New York, and also was working on graduate degrees and, dabbling in the New York area grade 2 pipe bands. And so that's kind of like, before I moved to California, that's kind of how I spent maybe the last, 15 years after SFU.
I see. Yeah. So you do have that grounding in the piping scene, I suppose, with the competitive scene, with SFU, and with all of your work with other competitive bands. But how I know you, Matthew, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I know you as an experimental bagpiper who takes bagpipes to places that I've never seen them before. But you seem to be incredibly brave bringing a set of pipes along to an event such as like a jazz festival and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, thank you. What I've done is that I've just had wide open ears and have been an avid listener for a lot of different types of music, and the bagpipes kind of, I think maybe they fell into a sort of just a gamut of sounds that I was interested in, something that was very kind of in your face, almost like distorted electric guitar or some electronic music, or and it just has this intense quality that I found also in modal jazz of the 60s, or music that people know, like from movies like the Philip Glass, the music that came out of that experimental minimalist drone oriented tradition. So I just felt like the instrument has all this other potential, to do these other cool things, and it's important to learn how to play it, but trying to find a personal niche when you're, not everybody can just continue to be in the competitive scene forever. So it's smart to be entrepreneurial. So
definitely. And we've been talking to folk recently in the Celtic and folk music scene, and they talk about this musical freedom that they suddenly find after competing at Pembroke, at the highest level, and finding it all very structured. to suddenly just wing it, play it as you feel it, and suddenly it's like Piper's foot. Well, what do you want me to do? There's no dots on the page. So do you find that yourself, it's going from that competitive scene to suddenly all sorts of musical freedom? How do you find that adjustment?
Well, it has its pros and cons, basically, because there are other to pull it off well in piping, you have to do it in a professional way. So what we have in piping, we have we have these great competitions, but what we don't really focus on is all of the long tuning, the different spots of the park, the tuning rooms for the Great Peeber contest, the travel involved, the investments of personal players. When you start to just look at things from the other end, like just making it as a musician, you have to have something to play. And sometimes, I just happened to be really into composing the whole time I was into piping. So I was listening to what composers were doing, not just, like Donald McLeod and Michael Gray. I was paying attention to what they were doing, but also what Philip Glass and some European composers were doing. And it just felt like there was just so much potential to bring this instrument in music and have it be a really effective voice.
No, indeed. And I think in certain cases, it definitely has found its voice for sure in a lot of your work. So I wanted to talk about the integration of Highland pipes with other acoustic instruments. We know famously it's incredibly difficult, given the sheer volume of the instrument, the amount of gigs I've been to, and the musical director or something says, you turn the pipes down. No, they don't work like that. There's no volume switch. So have you ever found any big difficulties that you haven't been able to overcome with the integration of Highland pipes?
The biggest difficulty is perhaps maybe the perception that the bagpipes are louder than they are. I mean, they are so loud that it's become kind of a lifelong or career-long problem for me that comes, I find interesting solutions, like playing with large ensembles or loud ensembles and people that are invested in maybe trying to tune things a little differently. So that's been my solution. I've written bagpipe concerto type scenarios for one soloist and orchestra, and it's amazing how loud the bagpipes is compared to orchestral instruments. But I find that certain instruments from the jazz and rock tradition, they blend well, and orchestral percussion as well. So I kind of look at models that are successful already and just try to blow them up a little bit, or I've done some combinations that really didn't work, like bagpipe and like an acoustic string quartet.
Oh wow!
No. that just like a wedding type of thing. It's like, okay, I shouldn't do that in my own work. They would have to be mic'd up or something like that. So
some sort of amplification there. Yeah, even around
the tuning thing did.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Well, I learned the hard way, and I got started before the B flat chanters were kind of a thing. Yeah. So I had to come up with solutions. Fortunately, I was like, at the same time, I was like dueling as a pipe band tuner, going around Long Island teaching bands and tuning their drones at contests and stuff. Yeah. So I was pretty adept with the tuner, and so I would set my pipes, the solo setup, just try to go a little lower, and I kind of left. Let's say like the last time I did a major solo competition was the silver medal in 2000. So my pitch spectrum has just sort of remained around there, like the late 90s. I love it. I love my nail pipes. They're deep and rich. It's easy for me to get to B flat now with those chanters, but for several years, almost a decade, I had to work getting other people to tune up, and I would tune down. And there were several issues of getting the pipe to be steady or getting their instruments to be steady. So the B flat chanter, I think I started using it about 10 years ago, and really made a lot of things easier.
Yeah.
And sometimes just play it as my preferred setup.
It has kind of revolutionized the piping scene. You know, for the longest time, you could never have a Highland piper in your band because you could never meet pitch wise. You know, always
Right.
someone was out. But now you have these B flat chanters, as you say. It really has transformed the piping scene. But I have to say, in competitive piping, though, we've noticed that bands in particular are rising in pitch and they continue to
Yeah.
do so each
Mhm.
year. What's your opinions on that? Do you think that we'll eventually hit a ceiling? You know, will we ever reach that stage?
I think it'll have a reboot more likely, because there's enough. Here's the thing: it doesn't. It happens in other music forms too. Like if you listen to European orchestras, they don't tune at 440 anymore. So it's funny
Right.
because
Yeah.
the B flat chanter is meant to tune within that spectrum, but
Yeah.
the top of the creme de la creme orchestras are pushing the pitch boundary up there too. It's
See.
just a smaller, like 4
Mm.
pitch degrees. I have found that it's just personally hard for me to keep up with the pitch demands of pipe bands.
Yeah.
Um, I find this is just a personal, I find that the higher, there's some theory behind it. The higher pitches have shorter wavelengths. They don't travel as far. They don't project as well. So they need to
Yeah.
be louder. You need more players. The pitches the instruments require a lot of additional reinforcements, like they have brand new reeds in order for those high pitch environments to stay stable. And really, we're only talking about 15 minutes of performance after a year. It's not sustainable for like being a versatile musician that works like with tons of different people, and you're going to find yourself just playing that setup at your own solo gigs, which is great. I personally was, guilty of that in my competing years because I bought into it. It's like, oh, let me come in just a little bit brighter than that person, and and I was always, we poked our reeds and we played McAllister's a lot, and I was always like, you know what, I can get my F, just I can get this brighter than you. I know I can.
A little bit more, yeah.
And it's part of the game. But when you think about the functionality of beyond just what is what edges something out competitively, doesn't always function like on a day-to-day musical balance. Okay, is my guitar, is the neck of the guitar going to break after 2 or 3 years of being pitched up? So I'm getting complaints.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Okay, all right, I gotta back off. So
oh dear. Well, I have to ask you then about your article that was published in Pipe and Times. We've just seen the compendium. Yeah. It was released there just ahead of Christmas, and you had a 3-page spread in there talking about the topic of bringing pipes into the new era, I suppose. Do you want to tell us about that article then for folks who may not have seen it?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it was kind of, the article was framed around a set of classes that I gave to the Royal Conservatoire students that are, the people that are doing their piping degree in that joint degree program with the Piping Center. John Mulhern, I have to credit, he's the Big Music Society. He's head of piping studies over there. They've been aware of what I've been doing for years, and I was just really psyched to get a chance to teach a bunch of music that I essentially wrote for myself, and then had to theorize it because I was doing graduate degrees and was selling albums and stuff like that. I just called it Kill Nua because I just felt like what I was doing was, I'm doing this music, but I'm using krunluas and e-doublings, and I'm using patterns that come out of jigs and stuff like that. But the form and the purpose and the audience or whatnot, even the titles, the way that the music was structured was just very different. So I felt like I just had to give it a name. Like, okay, I know, like, I really want people to believe that this isn't just the most out there thing. There is research both into the past and into the tradition, and an imagination of what the future will be based upon a lot of experimental music is not for everybody, but it's a niche of classical music or other types of musics. There's experimental rock, there's experimental jazz. There's a number of thinkers that are just like, hey, let's take what you normally hear and just push a little bit. Like, what does that mean? What do these sounds mean to people when they continually are put together? So anyway, Kilauea was the crux of that article, and I taught these. I'll leave their name. I'll let them be anonymous because they were students, but they worked hard on these pieces, different pieces like a sonata for bagpipe. Another piece that was just called The Off-Kilter Mason, which was written for my son when he was learning to walk. It's like a mixed meter hodgepodge, really difficult, like Balkan mashup that's hard to play, and then a set of like improvised pieces, which is that's something that pipers. That was the real jaw drop for like, oh, wait a minit, you don't
improvise what?
Improvise what? like change the grace notes around? Like, no, you have to play this game by these rules, and that actually got some of the best results, because people just, when you're improvising, you rely on your technique, you rely on your musicality, your ear, and your imagination. And, when it's in the hands of a right player, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It can be just musically exciting and really organic.
There you go. And it's something that I'm incredibly interested in, because like you say, Matthew, pipers are not encouraged to improvise at all. It's dots on the page, and you do what is competitively correct to win the prize.
Right.
Right. But with your new YouTube channel, Dr. Bagpipe, you talk so much about musical freedom and the ability to improvise. Is that something that it's kind of a passion of yours to kind of open bagpipers' ears? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like improvisation is it's a tough skill. Yeah, one thing, but it's not. I always use this as a doorway to explain to pipers. It's not a skill that is foreign to them. It's just that they choose to edit it out. So it is essential to other traditions of the music, where you play what's expected, what's the written thing, and then you add your own. Well, the next time the chorus comes around, you add your own take. And it's not just your own take, it's your take of the day. And that promotes a kind of like live relationship. Like, I'm doing this now, and that's for you and this audience. It's great for recordings as well, because you can get a lot of diversity out of certain like pieces that aren't meant to sound the same every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I could go on forever about it. And I'm really glad that Piping Times was able to publish some of that, just results from that workshop. And what do we call music that isn't just straight up kill beg or kill more? And more and more, the sounds of the world are creeping into the music, and more the bagpipe is getting out there into different musics. It's already in Dune, the movie, and I'm really excited to.
Definitely. Yeah, well, that's it. Big motion pictures like that, including the tone of our Highland bagpipe, is just incredible, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dare I say that fellas such as yourself that have that brave pioneering spirit to take pipes to a venue that shouldn't be, but I think it's incredible. Keep up the great work. So I have to say, I'm a huge fan, and I have been following your career for quite a while, and I'm actually quite excited. Whenever you first published this, we're looking at the website now, this new book of your own, the new complete theory for the Highland bagpipe. Whenever I seen this drop, I was going, "Ooh, I have to pick this up." So do you want to tell us about this new book?
I'll send you one.
There you go. I was going to pick one up. Tell us about this new book, Matthew.
It's okay. It's it has a little bit of a where to start. It's essentially it's two books, or 2-volume thing in one bound book. In the Highland piping style, it is sort of a DIY production. do it yourself. I look at my bookshelf, and I looked at all of my piping books, and I was like, well, what do they all look like? Okay, they all look like they did, put it out yourself. I'm not going to wait 10 years for some big press to put it out. I decided that, well, anyway, to rewind a little bit further, this was my doctoral thesis from Yale University.
Oh, wow.
The written component. So it was already, and it like won the top prize that year. And I was really proud of the work. And it's basically designed to repeat the Joseph McDonald complete theory of 1760/1803. But today, and Joseph McDonald was a trained musician, trained in notation, trained in other instruments, just enough of this sort of dual insider-outsider training that, all the books that came after complete theory were based on complete theory. All of the introductions, all of the theoretical sections had some sort of condensed version of complete theory. The notation, the scale, where it sits on the staff, all comes from there. And in a lot of ways, like, people look at it as like, oh, it's kind of incomplete, the notation, but like some of the stuff is so revealing what the music was like at that time, and maybe was like, maybe what was like, oh, okay, maybe 50 years ago they did that, before the Jacobite, during the Jacobite Revolution, like they stopped playing the barlow or something. And it I think he also was supposed to write another book that had more light music in it, so there was going to be a follow-up. I felt like he died too young. I wanted to do a similar thing from the perspective of today, and in a certain more objective way, document both. Like, I've composed pipe music, I've taught it, analyzed it. What's the most succinct way to talk about it? Like, and that any musician can walk in and say, oh, that's why all those grace notes do that. Right. It's because it's GDEs. It's easier to do 3 grace notes on 3 separate fingers than it is to do on on the same finger in a row. Simple theory. And but it looks baffling on the page. Like, what's the musical purpose of it? But also, to some people that are looking at it for the first time. And then the second half of the book, of the text portion, just talks about experimental jazz or experimental classical music projects where the instrument was really pushed. Retuning drones, playing for 40 minutes at a time. All sorts of really cool stuff. And I don't talk about my music much in the text, because I wanted to kind of have like an academic tone. But afterwards, I throw in maybe like, I think 13 of my pibrochs that are kind of pushing the idiom in a different directions. Several Kelbeg type tunes, and then a category that I was teaching, Kel Nua, a subset of really out there pieces that for the musically adventurous, or just the curious, who want to see what this music looks like.
Oh, fantastic. Well, as I say, I was going to pick up a copy of this because, like I say, I've been following your career now for quite a while. I always know you as being this brave bagpiper. So this book actually documents that, and that's just what we're talking about here. So for anyone out there who's interested in a lot of your experimental works and stuff, go and check out this brand new book, a new complete theory for the Highland bagpipe. Definitely worth picking up. So that's available through your website there, Matthew. Actually, Matthew.
Through my website.
.com.
That's. I have a few places where you can get it. You can get it on the website as a hard copy, but that links you to my record label. I mean, I do a bunch of different stuff. So I have a Bandcamp located record label, online record label, and you can also get the book there. And if you get it there, you get the free album. So
there you go.
Anyway, just trying to, and then you can run away from some of the other music if you get too scared. But
exactly.
Thanks for mentioning that.
No problem. Well, if anything, I would encourage folks listening to the pod right now or watching this video actually to go and check out your music. There's a wealth of material out there. You've been gigging for quite a number of years. So I do have to ask you then, what does 2022 hold for yourself this year, Matthew?
Well, we're still dealing with pandemic lockdown. So I mean, it's near lockdown. People are behaving in more or less the same way. I have a child, and so it's going to be looking a little similar to some of the some of what we've known.
Yeah.
But there's some musical things I'm still excited about, and hopefully the pandemic does not put a damper on those any more than it already has. I am very far from the piping scene. I am doing an opera for a girls' chorus this June, and it is based on a diary of a. There's been the Philippines was a colony of the United States, and I have a lot of family history that goes back there. So I have additional interest in Filipino music and the U.S. Filipino, colonial relations and
connection.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
And so it's very much in a different direction, but it's designed to be a stage and 70-minute theatrical piece with mostly young women singing, and they're all very virtuosic. It's like our junior pipe bands that can win the world championships. They're all like serious musicians. So that's going to be quite the big thing on this year. And I'm also like Dr. Bagpipe is just a very burgeoning thing, where I'm just trying to all the things that I wanted to teach students that they were never asking for. Just wanted to slowly build that up, and perhaps I'll put out another book that kind of culls from that material, like something approachable. Like I really want to do like, how do you compose a bagpipe tune? Like, or
that'd be worth its weight in gold. Yeah.
And it's one of these things where like composition is best taught one-on-one and interacting and stuff and learning counterpoint, but there's still a way, it still hasn't been adequately described how to go and do it yourself. So well, I'm interested in doing that.
I can't wait to see that. Actually, that sounds brilliant. So for those of you out there who haven't checked out Matthew's YouTube channel, just put it into YouTube, Dr. Bagpipe. And there's a video actually that really drew my attention is what's in my pipe box. It's such a simple, such a simple question, but it's brilliant to watch it, because then you get to see all the tools and things that are involved,
Well, part of the basically the canon of literature around, or just the way that we teach piping is so much about it's hard to make it about the individual. It's hard to make it personal for people. And it's funny, during the pandemic, I decided to take a year off the bagpipe, and because funny enough, so many people were dying, but I didn't have a single funeral. That was how severe the circumstances were. And so I picked up guitar, and it was an instrument that I could noodle around and have my kid, wouldn't bother my kid. And I started learning through YouTube, and I just saw like, wow, okay, if everybody was doing what we were doing, all the guitar videos on YouTube would be about Spanish flamenco or Italian classical or this, and how to do it. And it just made me think like, well, it actually is very simple. Despite the fact that I've done some really weird out there stuff with the instrument and pushed it beyond the bar, there are very simple ways to bring the music into a personal realm. I just look at people, inviting more people into personalizing, making their own tunes, or hey, actually enjoy playing it. Take all the grace notes out, put your own grace notes in, or write your own tune, or hey, if you forget the tune, how can you if you know how to improvise, you know how to fill in those extra 3 bars there. You should be doing an A chord and not a G chord, that type of stuff. So, the basic building blocks where I'm not really, there's enough like how do you do an E doubling correctly videos, and there's thousands of them to show you, have your head spinning. What's the right way? I feel like, I just see my son being really creative with Lego blocks, like some simple building blocks to help people get open up their minds a little bit, and Anyway, I hope that it's it's in its infant state at this point, and I'm learning how to use video editing and whatnot, and trying not to have take over my life. But yeah, it's there to sort of water down a little bit of the theoretical stuff that's in my book, and
I see. Well, that's been a fascinating project to watch so far, and I can't wait to see how it further develops in the future. So, excellent stuff. Keep up the great work, Matthew. Now, I have to say,
so much.
Every guest who comes on to the Big Rab Show always gets asked some Big Rab Show staples, and I'm afraid you're not going to escape either.
Okay.
So I have to ask you then.
Something I'm not prepared for.
No, well, that's it. Well, all of your story career throughout, the years in the piping scene, has there been any one particular moment that stands out to you as particularly memorable?
In the overall scene.
Yeah, just all of your time in piping, with having the instrument under your arm. Has there been any one moment that stands out as going, wow, that was kind of cool?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of a bragging moment, but it was, I had been knocking on Philip Glass's door for years and had many opportunities to meet and talk with him, and but never the opportunity to present a piece of mind while playing bagpipes. And lucked out, he came to some show, a piece that I wrote for girls chorus and bagpipe, and part of the kind of tied into the relationship of the opera I'm doing now. And yeah, we performed it for him, and it was greeted with much enthusiasm and praise, and it was God, that was
fantastic.
That was a huge highlight. I would have to say also working on the other side of the fence in the traditional music, some of the work done with Metro and bringing that over to Scotland, New York Metro pipe band, that is. Shout out to the boys in New York.
Shout out to the Metro.
Yeah, that was there's it's a tough thing in bagpiping to keep a band going forever, and keep them on the top, especially in North America. But there was some really there was a real magical campaign there. A lot of good chemistry, a lot of interesting musical. I was able to mess around a little bit with some musical ideas that were sort of palatable for both audiences. The Donald McLeod, when we did the Donald McLeod medley at the Pipes of Peace concert.
Yes, I remember
huge
that.
Highlight.
Yeah,
huge highlight. Being able to present, but in a concert setting, like this is without being so uptight about the competition thing, but the kind of energy that comes from the audience playing for a big audience.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe thirdly,
I remember the cheer that night as well. It took the roof off the place. That was incredible.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Probably it's so hard to find the best one, but probably Blarvusser playing Celtic Connections was just to throw a trio of things there. Really, really nice. Like home, like this music has found a home. Maybe.
There you go.
Tiny little
Celtic,
flat in Glasgow.
Celtic Connect. It's one of those festivals, isn't it, where you find bands like that, that are pushing the envelope. Yeah. Celtic Connection, such an incredible festival. Yeah, for sure. So, Matthew, I have to also ask you quite a stupid question, but we ask everyone. What's your favorite cheese?
My favorite cheese?
Yeah, have you got one?
Gruyere.
Ooh, haven't heard of that. No, what kind of cheese is that?
It's a La Gruyere. It's a Swiss French cheese.
Ooh.
From the Gruyere region. It's a hard cheese.
Right.
Fortunately for me, it is one of those lactose-free cheeses because it's a hard cheese and I can still consume it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a popular. If you like Swiss cheese, it's one of the top choices. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. I know that's a random question, but we ask everybody that same
question. It's a great one. Actually. There you go. It's a real personality defining type of thing.
See, there you go. Indeed. So again, just to remind folks then of where they can go to grab your book and any of your music for that matter, go and check out the website. It's MatthewWelchMusic.com. That's where everything is. And is there any other points of contact, Matthew, you want to direct folks to for checking out all your stuff?
Yeah, there's well, if you want to get into more of my classical stuff or find another location for New Complete Theory, there's kotekonrecords.com. Also, if you're the easy URL to get to my YouTube, drbagpipe.com, it will bring you right to the YouTube. So I think they're easy to remember, but yeah, MatthewWelchMusic.com is kind of where you can find it all.
Superb.
And also, hey, thanks for having me on and talk about all these different things, especially the cheese. I love Swiss. I love talking about Swiss cheese in Switzerland too.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Exactly. Well, no, it's a pleasure. It's all mine, honestly, to have you on. I've been a fan for a good number of years, and I just want to say thank you for all of the music for over the years, and to keep up the great work. And yeah, for anyone interested in finding out more, go and check out all the points of contact. Matthew, thank you so much for taking time to chat to us on the podcast this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rab. It's a real pleasure to be here.